I spent all of my childhood really making waves, I guess, if you will, because that's what my family did and that's what my father felt that we should do.
Follow the Leader features dynamic women entrepreneurs in their journeys to becoming a success in business. This podcast is an inspirational space for entrepreneurs, future entrepreneurs, and thought leaders as they share their keys to success. I am Chanel Christoph Davis, the CEO and founding partner of the largest woman and minority-owned sales tax advisory practice in the country, Davis and Harmon, LLC. So today we have in the guest leader chair, Beverly Evans Smith. Beverly Evans Smith is the 2017 to 2021 National President and CEO of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc., one of the nation's largest minority female-owned and operated public service nonprofits. She's also served as the organization's National Vice President, National Secretary, and previously employed as Delta Sigma Theta's Executive Director. Woo. Okay? Hang on, guys. I got more. Okay, so Beverly Evans Smith retired from the Technical College System in Georgia as the Assistant Commissioner and Georgia State Director of Adult Education and GED testing. She has testified before the U.S. Senate Health Committee representing the issues facing adults with literacy challenges. As an entrepreneur, Smith is also Senior Vice President of the HR Group, Inc., a management consulting firm she has owned with her husband, Stephen, for 30 years. As a corporate manager, Smith spent 18 years in leadership positions with AT&T Southern Bell. She is a prolific motivational speaker in the areas of leadership development and change management, and she is currently on the board of directors of the National Council of Negro Women and the Delta Research and Education Foundation. In 2020, she was named Georgia's Outstanding Individual by the Georgia General Assembly and the Lead 360 Business Organization's Executive of the Year for 2020 to 2021. Her alma mater, Bowling Green State University, named her to the 2018 class of the Academy of Distinguished Alumni. In 2006, she was named a History Maker by the History Makers, a national African American historical registry, which is housed in the United States Library of Congress. In addition to all of that, I'm going to take a break because I'm out of breath. I don't know about you guys, but I'm out of breath. Whew. In addition to all of that, she is a wife. She is a mother to 2 beautiful children and a grandmother to 5. And on top of all of that, she is my soror. So welcome to the show. Welcome to Follow the Leader. I am so happy to have you.
Oh, thank you, Soror Davis. It's good to be here today.
I'm overjoyed. So my theme for 2021, WON, because we're winning 2021, is joy.
Go. All right.
And having you with me today is giving my heart so much joy. I'm so pleased to talk to you.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to see you and what you're doing. As I see these young entrepreneurs and women doing their thing, it makes my heart sing. So congratulations to you on everything you're doing.
Thank you, Soror. So we have several things in common. I started my career in telecom. One of my first jobs was with Verizon.
Oh, wow.
So, yes, I was in internal audit with Verizon. Also, I founded and I run my business with my husband, who's my business partner. So we work together every single day. We have that in common. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. We're going to get into that in a minute. And we both pledged Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, which means that we have made a lifetime commitment to service to mankind.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed, we have. 54 years for me this year.
Oh, congratulations, Soror.
Thank you.
So, and you are also wrapping up your tenure as our international president and CEO.
I am.
So the countdown is on.
The countdown is on. That's right.
To the huge celebration, and you will be passing the torch at our national conference this year.
I will. I
That's
will.
amazing. Amazing. So I want to start from the beginning. And I think we also have a Louisiana connection because I did my research, Sarah. I
Oh,
think I'm originally from New Orleans, Louisiana. So
oh, no
we'll talk.
kidding.
Yes, I was born and raised in
Yes.
New Orleans. My husband as well. So take us to the beginning. Tell me about little Beverly. What were you like as a kid? Were you an entrepreneur? Were you precocious? Were you, innovative and had a lot of ingenuity? Tell me all about what it was like growing up.
Wow, I don't know. I don't know how to describe that. And my mom's from Lafayette. She was born in New Iberia. So
Oh,
when I was little, we used to make that drive from Ohio to Louisiana. And I can't, that was a 3-day drive back in the day. And finding a place to stop to stay in the car on those 3-day drives was a whole interesting separate story that we won't get into. But my dad was a civil rights activist in addition to what he did. And my childhood, for the most part, was spent integrating things. He moved us to, I was in the 3rd grade when he had built a house, and the land he built it on, the deed to that property, which I still have, says that it cannot be purchased by Negroes.
oh
Uh,
wow.
he could not find a loan in the state of Ohio to even buy the property or build a house. He finally got a loan from the state of New York. He could not find a builder in the area who would even build the house. He had to find a builder from another city. Mr. Martin, I remember him, and the man had death threats the entire time he was building that house. But I can remember when I was going into the 3rd grade, we the night we moved into the house, I remember, and I tell this story, my dad had a Winchester rifle, which I still have. He held that rifle by the front door all night long. I could
Wow.
hear the yelling and carrying on going outside of the house, but he did that because he wanted to make sure he made a stand for us. He was a firm believer that if people got to know each other, that they would get past the color thing and understand that we are more alike than we are differences. So my sisters and I were guinea pigs, and unfortunately, I was the guinea pig because my sisters are 5 and 9 years younger than I am, 4 and 9 years younger than I am. So they were just babies. My youngest sister had just been born when we moved there. So I integrated the grade school, which probably still isn't integrated except for when we were there. We integrated that neighborhood. We integrated the church. When I went on to high school, the high school I went in another city, there were probably, out of the 1,000 or more students there was one other girl in my class, and that was it. So I spent all of my childhood really making waves, I guess, if you will, because that's what my family did, and that's what my father felt that we should do. I can remember one time when the band was I was in the band, that's a whole nother story, playing the bass drum because I was a classical pianist. So in order to be in the concert band, I had to be in the marching band, which my mother was absolutely appalled that her daughter would play a bass drum in a band. But that again is a whole other story. But I can remember the issues that I had then. It was an all-girls school, but they did have a prom because they had a matching boys school. So, my dad I didn't know anybody. And back in the 60s, we did not do much dating. So they conned this poor guy. I'm sure they paid him to take me to the
I'm sure it didn't take that much of a bribe. Come on.
no, so I have a black date, so I actually could go. It's the most embarrassing experience of my life. But anyhow, or one of them. But for me, growing up was very different. My mom did, when I was much younger. I started school when I was 3. I've never to this day understood from her why she thought that was a good idea. But I did. It worked. I started playing piano about 4, so I did that all the way through high school. When I went to college, I was able to escape that. So it was an unusual background. My mom, who was a teacher but quit when my parents got married, really focused on raising children and making sure girls had an education. That was extremely important to her. But I will say that early start, and I was a leader all through high school. I can't say that I wasn't. I was class president. I was most likely to succeed.
Of course you were.
Out of all those white folks, I still was able to, and I never thought about that until recently when somebody asked me about that, and I went back and I think about the time we lived in and the fact that the class named me that when I was there alone is interesting. But I've always, I think, had leaning towards leading. I guess it was just something that has come naturally. I've had a lot of leadership positions in my life, but I think that's just kind of the way God made me to do things.
That's the way God made you. And it's
That's it.
amazing that I think if there were a poster child in the definition for the first, because we're still having first,
Oh
which is kind
gosh,
of sad.
yes,
We're
yes.
still in the age of 2021. We still have to report the first. The
Isn't that
first
sad? I
is
can
very
see it in
sad.
my day, but not then. I mean, I can remember my dad in the Urban League. He was very big in the Urban League. He'd find a swimming pool that needed to be integrated, and he would say, "All you got to do is put your foot in the water at this park, and we'll all be right there behind you." I said, "Why do I have to do the
Why do you
thing?"
have to be the one to go and put
But
your foot in the water? That's
so, but I
hilarious.
think because I put my foot in the water of unusual spaces early, it's always been a place where I guess I'm comfortable doing that. So,
That's amazing. That's incredible. That explains a lot
oh,
about your bio and your background, right?
I
Because
suppose, I
I'm
suppose.
looking at it and I'm just like, my gosh, I literally need to work more because I'm not doing enough.
No, you don't. No, you don't. And you know
I'm-
what's funny? I look at people who I consider have really achieved because I really don't consider that for myself. And I see all the amazing things they do, and I don't necessarily see that for me. I think I do what comes naturally, and that's okay. And it's hard work, but I think if you're living your purpose, whatever your purpose is, and this is clearly your purpose, is going to come naturally to you.
yes,
To me,
yes.
that's not unusual.
And that comes with joy, right? Because
It
you're
does.
actually living in what God wants you to do, what He's
That's
called you to
right.
do.
That's
Yes,
absolutely right. That's
that's
absolutely right.
beautiful.
Absolutely.
So you clearly was a child that was called to service. Your father was a civil rights leader,
Yeah.
which I did not know.
Yeah.
So thank you for sharing that background. It really does explain a lot. Um, and academically, you did very well as well.
I
You
did
know,
okay.
you did okay. She's got to do okay.
Did okay.
Well, what was it like? I feel like I'm talking to living history, and it's such an honor.
Uh,
But what was it like starting a career? I can't even imagine in the Bells. You were a part of Southern Bell, so you
yes.
were a first. You that was a first too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You were the first generation to start to
You know,
integrate corporate America.
probably so. There were not a lot of us in the 70s. I'd been in higher ed first though. I was my master's is university administration. So I was a college administrator for about 8 years. And to be honest with you, what I the area that I work in the most is as I found it over the years, regardless of whether I work for a nonprofit or a business or the consulting firm or started my own business, whatever. I've always been one to go into organizations. What people hire me to do is to go in organizations, try and find out underlying issues, and then work to restructure and help them fix them.
So
So I
you were
do.
kind of in change management.
I do. I'm in change management. I do org redesign and restructure. And when I was at Georgia State, that's actually what I did there. I was assistant dean for student affairs, but I reorganized and restructured the department. One of the Georgia State is downtown Atlanta, so it's a lot of business people that go there. Someone who was there, who was a VP at Southern Bell back then, saw what I did. I'm not exactly sure how, in terms of restructuring that part of it, and asked me to join Southern Bell to come in. They had an issue with business technicians who work in business environment with customer service ratings. And they were having some problems in terms of complaints, which by the way, typically went up on a full moon, but that's a whole separate story.
Mm,
There's a reason
okay.
behind that. He asked me to come in and take a look at their business operation in terms of how technicians service business customers to see if we couldn't find a way to stop the issues that they had in terms of customer complaints. So that's actually why I went there, based on a skill set, not what I'd done before. So I went from higher ed to corporate America and worked there. I was able to resolve that, and real pleased. The process the change process I started in that department in terms of how systems technicians did their work was actually adopted by AT&T system wide.
Wow.
So it was a good experience for me. It was a white male experience because that's the department I worked in. So it was different. It was unusual. There were not many Black women, Black men, yes. But I can remember, and I tell the story about the first manager I had there, the first supervisor, district manager. And, they assigned me to do this task that was impossible. We had to do something with the union, convince them that this was the right thing to do. But he came over to my desk one day and he said, Beverly, I couldn't, just not comfortable talking. I says, okay. He says, I don't see you as Black anymore. And I'm really, this is going to work. So, quickly you have to think in your head, okay, do I sue? Do I scream? Do I do angry Black woman? Do I not say anything and just say yasa? I wasn't exactly sure.
You weren't sure what was the response that was required for that.
You know what? But you know what you do? You think about the baggage that the other people have. And I think this is important for any place that you go. What baggage does he come in with to cause him to not be able to accept who I was in terms of what I did, but then to be able to turn it around? And I think our relationship, so my response back was, I'm so glad you're past that. I think we're going to be able to do well together. And we did. He turned out to be a lifelong friend, even after he retired. And I think the experiences I had growing up and learning how to deal with people who were different than you to try and make things work is a part of that. But I did, and when I left AT&T, I did leave as a district manager. When I was promoted to district manager, I think there were only 2 of us in the city and maybe 5 or 10 in the country that were Black female. And again, you hate at that time period that you end up being the only one or the only one of few. And you are right, Chanel, it's sad that we're at a point today where I was in the 1970s and 80s. That should not be. We have had such difficulty in breaking those barriers, which I think forces people. And in my case, because I'd reached the point there where, they wanted me to move someplace I didn't want to go. I'd been there, I think 16 or 17 years. And I really decided, if I can do this and do change management for corporations, why shouldn't I just go out and do it for myself? My husband already had the company. He does HR, I do change management. So I joined the company that we have and just started doing consulting on my own. And 30 years later, we're still in business. So
you're still doing it.
The good news is we celebrated 30 years in business in December 2020. It's that finding your way and finding what your skill set is. When I went to the Georgia system of adult education, I wound up doing the same thing, going in restructuring, reorganizing. I've done the same thing with our headquarters operation in Delta. So I think your core skill set follows you wherever you go in terms of what you're able to do. So, I say to young women all the time, actually men as well, look for your core skill set. Don't allow yourself to be stuck in something.
Yeah, don't allow other people to put you in a box either.
No,
if you know what your gifts are. Yes.
That's right. Understand what you are and what you can do, and don't define yourself and put you in a box. So many people stay in a job because they got to have a job. They hate it, but it's more comfortable to be miserable where you are than to venture out and try something new. So sometimes we put ourselves in that box and define ourselves so narrowly that we aren't looking at all we could be and all we are.
All the opportunities. Yes. Right. And I think the thing that I'm picking up from your background is there's a thread that has followed you throughout your life, probably thanks to your parents. You are a change maker. You were that from the day you were born.
No choice.
You carried that throughout you didn't have a choice. But you took up the mantle and you did it. It worked. Yes. And I'm sure your sisters that came behind you, your 2 sisters, thank you for being the first so they didn't have to be.
In some ways, yes, in some ways, no. And as I said, we grew up in different generations. It's almost like growing up with 3 different parents, because, as they evolve, you evolve.
Yes.
And they did not have to go through the things that I went through first. And it made it a little easier for them. Although when they were in school, especially in high school, they still faced a lot of racism. I think matter of fact, I'm sure it had a greater impact on them than it did on me. And I think it's because we grew up in different generations. I don't think I had an alternative but to just plow through it and get used to it and make it work for me. I think that's a survival instinct. Because they didn't have to develop that kind of survival instinct, it still came, I think, as a shock to them. And I know I'm speaking for them, I probably shouldn't, that they faced it. But if you consider the racism that we see today, and you see those who did not have to go through it firsthand, but suffer it secondhand, and it's still always a surprise.
It's a shock. It's a shock to the system.
It's always a shock to your system when you see that. And I think probably out of self-preservation, I probably just developed some immunity to it. But I was a geek. I'm not going to say that. And I spent a lot of time when I wasn't in those environments in books.
Okay.
That I think was my retreat.
And books are amazing because they're able to transport you to a different world, to let you know about what was possible.
Yeah, absolutely.
I was a book nerd too as a kid.
Absolutely.
I love the library.
Oh yeah. Well, if you saw the wall over here in my office, the entire wall is, my husband finally gave in, and the wall is just a whole bookcase.
It's a whole book.
About I think we counted them. There's probably somewhere around over 1,000, 1,500 books.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
And he keeps saying, don't you want to give some of
the share the wealth with others?
It's like we need to, and we have a whole Black History library, but it's good for the children to see too as well. I think it's important for them to see that you have readers in the house. Reading clearly is important to me. My dad only had a third grade education, but he wound up being an electronics technician. He was very much self-taught in terms of what he did after fleeing the South when he was just young. But I think that nerd in me is what I'm very comfortable with myself, and you have to be.
You have to be, absolutely.
Because of the fact that books were my retreat, I just, you develop a relationship with yourself and your God that keeps you going.
So we kind of glossed over the transition from AT&T to being the entrepreneur. When you first started talking about entrepreneurship, did you know it was going to be in change management and HR consulting? Was that your first go-to?
It was for me. It wasn't for my husband.
Okay.
He started that business in whatever 30 years ago, 1990. I didn't join him for several years later. He always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I mean, just always. That was his thing. We first got married. We both, we talked about what each of us wants in life before we got married. You do that before.
Very important to do that before. Okay. Young people
yes,
have that conversation.
Talk about this before you get married.
Absolutely.
He wanted one. He always wanted a business, but he worked in corporate America for quite a while. While I was in, I give AT&T credit, while I was with Southern Bell, an opportunity came up to be executive director for Delta. And of course, when I'm explaining to my my white VP that I'm going to go work for a sorority, he was like, you can't be serious.
I want to ask you about too. That's one of my lines of question. I want to get to that. How did that happen? But yes, tell the story.
It happened on a dare. But so, there was a Black VP there who explained it to him. I never forget, Ray's a wonderful guy, Robinson. And he said, no, Black sororities are different than white sororities and fraternities, this kind of thing. So they said, okay, so here's what we'll do. And I think this is the value of making yourself valuable. They said, well, we'll let you go for 2 years, but we're going to do it as a loaned executive. And
so they loaned you out. Yes.
So we'll hold on to those 2 years will count. We'll hold on to your benefits. After 2 years, we'll see if you want to come back. And if you do, then we'll relook, we'll call you after that point and say, here's where your job is. Do you want to take it? And we'll cut the ties at that point, or you can stay on. Now, understand, I'm a Black female that worked in a totally white male environment all of my career. And then went to work for an all Black female environment. That was a transition. And I traveled 24/7 when I was with the sorority, and my kids were little. My daughter was in grade school. Wow. After 2 years, when AT&T did call back, and they offered me a position back in Atlanta, we really felt for the family overall, it made sense to go ahead and go back. So
go back to AT&T.
I did go back.
So since we talked about you leaving AT&T to take the appointment for Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated, explain to the audience who's listening, what is Delta Sigma Theta? Because we've talked about it, we've dropped it a couple times. Explain to them about what our sorority is in the history.
It's two things, and I'll start off by saying, and I think people don't understand in the business that we're in because they think of the Divine Nine as sorority and fraternities. In Delta's case, and I'm sure in the others, but in Delta's case, Delta Sigma Theta is also a $30 million business. We are the second largest Black-owned African American business in the world. With the number of members that we have in our revenue. So it is a corporation, which is why there's CEO on my name. It's Delta Sigma Theta, it's national president and CEO, and also a public service organization. So it has two arms to it that you have to deal with at the same time. Delta was founded in 1913. It was, our first act was that of marching in the Suffragette March. We were the only Greek-led organization to march as an organization. There were very few Black organizations that marched in terms of women in that day. Mary Church Terrell, who was president of, and I don't want to mess it up, but the National Colored Women's Association, kind of insisted, talked to the SOARs, the 22 that were there, about marching in that parade and supporting the rights of those who rights they obviously couldn't get, but supporting equity. And our SOARs did that. They marched in that parade together as an organization, not in the back. They insisted on marching in the collegiate section. Mary Church Terrell insisted that they march in the collegiate section, and they did. It's always interesting to talk about that parade. The organizers of that parade, Alice Paul and Inez Mulholland. Alice Paul did not want any Black folks marching in that parade. She really was afraid that she would lose her Southern chapters if, in fact, she allowed those 22 little Black girls to march along with some others. Alice Mulholland, whose father happened to have been the treasurer of the NAACP at that time, which was about 6 years old at that point, really insisted that that happen. Inez Mulholland, if you ever see pictures of the parade, was the woman on the white horse that led the parade off. Okay. She won that battle. And the Deltas did march. The focus on public service for Delta started then. From the time she marched, and then you look at Mary McLeod Bethune, who was at the table when they started the United Nations, the only African woman there. She was an advisor to President Roosevelt, to Dorothy Height, to Daisy Bates, the Little Rock Nine, Fannie Lou Hamer, who still says we're sick and tired of being sick and tired. We all still say that and remember that she said that. Our history has been one of being involved and engaged in social action. It started that way, and our DNA has kind of led to that. Marcia Fudge, who was confirmed as the Secretary of HUD yesterday.
Yes.
And she's the first Secretary of HUD in over 40 years. That's African American, female. The interesting part about that is the first Secretary of HUD, the first African-American woman to sit in a cabinet and as Secretary of HUD was also a Delta, Patricia Roberts Harris, who was also our first National Executive Director. Yes. So Soar Fudge, Marcia, our 21st national president, is following in the footsteps of the last African-American woman who was in that position 42 years ago, who was also a Delta. So,
and we can't forget the first African-American to be on the major party ticket for the Democrats.
Absolutely, absolutely. Shirley Chisholm, who told us all to take our own folding chair to the table if we don't get one. Shirley Chisholm, the first woman to run for president. Carol Moseley Braun, the first Black woman in the Senate. Loretta Lynch, the first Attorney General who was of African American descent. The list goes on. Alexis Herman, who served under Clinton in terms of the Secretary of Labor. So, that social action thing, we have 7 in Congress now. April Ryan, Soledad O'Brien, those who are involved in the movement from a perspective of the media.
Yes.
Were all there and in those seats as well. We have, and I think our history, when we look at it, we've had 12 African-American women on postal stamps.
Yes.
And when you look at that, you can see Delta's history as you look at who's on those stamps. When you look from Mary McLeod Bethune and Mary Church Terrell, Wilma Rudolph, and Gwen Ifill, And the list goes on in terms of those that are there: Daisy Bates and Fannie Lou Hamer, Lena Horne, the range of those on there. And you see Andra Day. I'm so excited about our Delta Sigma Andra Day,
Yes.
who's following in Lena Horne's footsteps and others as she won the the Golden Globe Award.
She was incredible. That
Wasn't
movie
she
was,
though?
I mean, I learned so much about Lady Day. I didn't even know about. I
Oh,
had no idea about
oh
her
wow.
impact, but I think that the timing was perfect to revisit her.
It really was.
She did an amazing job.
She really did. And we did a live streaming interview with her 2 days before
Yes.
it went out. And I mean, she is such an incredible young woman.
Mm,
And when you see her and talk to her, she is just so light and airy and deep in terms of her concern and issues in terms of social action. She is very focused on her faith. And when you see her in that movie, you see she's clearly an incredible actress, because that was not her.
oh
But
my gosh, she totally like turned into
she did.
she transformed.
She
And
did.
she's not an actress. That's not her
She
first
did.
career.
She
Her
did.
first career,
That was
she's a
her. You're
vocalist.
right. Right. I think she'll be an actress now on, but anyhow,
Yes,
um,
amazing.
yes,
Amazing.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I did want to give the audience who, because my podcast has a far reach and all multiple, backgrounds. People listen to the podcast. I wanted to explain why I called Beverly Evans Smith my soror, and what our organization is about, in the history and the foundation for why we joined the sorority. I
Well,
thought that was important.
I think it's important for a lot of reasons. And and all of us, all the Divine Nine organizations are very engaged in civil action and civil rights and social action. I think our history with it and the large number of women who have been outspoken and led to, and we are extremely supportive of Kamala Harris and her ascension of first to national,
Yes, making
to vice
history.
president of the
Absolutely.
United States is absolutely incredible. And, I think we have all converged together to make sure we're focused on taking care of our business. I think the situation we were in with the pandemic and the previous administration, all those things caused us, because, we are women of color, and Black folks are incredible in times of crisis. We come forward. We are so innovative in terms of what we do and how we come out. We are inventive. And when we have bad times, we can't afford to let the colors we wear stand in our way.
Absolutely not.
We are more together now than we've ever been before. And that's because, as a people and as people with common interests and a concern for equity for everybody, we are going to do what's right and come together. And we all
Absolutely.
have great histories. Each of our histories is different and taking a different route. But we're very pleased with where we are today, and all support each other tremendously.
Well, I just wanted to definitely talk about your service for the sorority. You inspire me. I'm about to be an empty nester. My daughter is graduating from high school this year. So I am looking to being more active in my sorority. And I look at your service and I'm so inspired.
Thank you. I'm going to remember you said that. So I'll be looking for those dues payments.
Oh, absolutely. I'm active. I've been, in fact, when my daughter, when she went to high school and she graduated from junior high, I reinstated my dues then, because I was like, I cannot
There you go.
not have my life in order when she leaves, because she's gonna pull off on the first thing smoking, and I'm be in the back crying under my bed.
Yes, you
So
will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
yes. So I needed my sorors. I need you guys more than ever now, because she's leaving in August and I can't believe it. She's my only daughter, so my only child. So
Oh,
it's
wow.
gonna be a big transition for my family. Absolutely. I also want to talk about, when we talk about thing programs for the sorority. You guys made a huge announcement yesterday with Goldman Sachs. If you want to share that, I was excited. I'm alumni of Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Businesses.
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, I attended. I graduated in 2015, so I received an email, custom to the Black women who went through the
Right,
program.
right.
And then, upon further research about the program, because I was like, oh, wow, I looked at the board. The board was phenomenal of who's involved in the initiative. I did more research and found out that there's a partnership with my sorority. I said, of course there's a partnership with my sorority. If it's addressing the needs of Black women in America, of course. So tell us about that, Sarah Smith, and how that came to be and all about the initiative.
Well, I can share something. We're still in progress in terms of developing it fully. Now, I got to give a shout out to Goldman Sachs. I'm going to say that because when there are no latecomer to the game of making sure that Black women and that women of color, people of color, really have a place and provided opportunity. I'm glad to know that you're one of their million. The intent of this program really is to spread that.
Yes.
They are investing in many ways, not only in resources, financial resources, but in their people and their staff, in making sure that they expand their reach. And it's something they've been doing for, gosh, a good 20 years or more. And the thing that impresses me, one of the things that impresses me about them, because we did meet with their top leadership to expand what they're doing in terms of working with them, is that they are so dedicated to this and that they do in their organization and have for years, not just because it's the thing to do now, but
No, they've been at it for a long time.
they've been at it for a long time. They have people of color at every level in their organization, which is incredible to see. And our goal is, and the intent of the relationship is for Black women's organizations to come together to help them with that, to spread that word, to help them meet the goals that they have for helping entrepreneurs like yourself do what they need to do in business. And so we'll be doing some listening events to try and do that together with Goldman Sachs, to do our research as well. Delta has always been, at least during my administration, I guess it's because I am an entrepreneur.
You're an entrepreneur, yes.
It's important to me. So we have the red pages. We have a business directory of all of our Black women entrepreneurs in the organization. We try to provide them support. We had a session with Coca-Cola, another one of our partners, not too long ago, for our business entrepreneurs, so that they could gain some knowledge from people at the top. We'll try to do the same thing with this initiative as well. We're getting to do some real exciting things with young collegiate entrepreneurs that I can't talk about because it's a surprise in terms of what Delta's doing with that. But it's important that we understand and feel the significance of being independent. Small business is the backbone of this country, and being able to expand that is extremely important. We took a hit with this pandemic, and businesses are struggling and suffering, and so is industry. But what happens when business takes a downturn? That is the time when new businesses spring up.
Absolutely.
Because you have to pivot, and you've got to be flexible and resilient in what you do. This is where if one business fails, don't give up on being in business altogether. Look for other opportunity. Look for where there is now a hole, a niche that needs to be filled, because the world has changed. The new normal's created something else, other opportunities. So when Zoom must be, these people are, I'm sure they didn't think their business model would ever.
Oh no, they didn't know this was about to happen.
No way, what it is today. But they saw an opening and they took it. And they took it at a time that was wise for them. And obviously they didn't know, but it started to be something else. As entrepreneurs and as people who may be out of work or lost something in this pandemic, or the company's died out, this is where you go back to, okay, what's my basic skill set? What have I taken with me from place to place? Who am I and what can I do what I have? Because there's got to be somebody that needs it. And I think the relationship with Goldman Sachs will build that. I think what we're trying to do for our SOARs who are in the red pages, and we're hoping to get more to join, we're trying to find ways to help them to do it. And, it's a fledgling thing. We started the red pages, I guess the second year of my administration, but we're trying to continue to build that and grow it more. And what we've got to do is to grow more education sessions for those SOARs as we do it. And, that whole Red Pages platform was built by a SOAR who's an entrepreneur. She's in corporate America, but she's also starting her own entrepreneurship on her own. We're trying to do the same thing with our vendors in terms of helping our vendors. So we're working to try and change the model in terms of how we work with our vendors so that we can support them. They're there at every convention, every conference.
Yes.
We've done little things. We now, do breakfast for in the morning. I try to do a session with them, but we've got to do something to help them in their business as well. And we're trying to find some ways to do that too.
Absolutely. And that's how I discovered that you were an entrepreneur, is when I attended the Coca-Cola session.
Oh, great.
Yes. And I figured, you said that you have been in business for 30 years and that you were an entrepreneur, which I said, I have to talk to her. That's it. I need to have her on.
That's what did it. Okay.
That's what did it. And I have seen a market a marked change in the sorority, the national leadership, that you guys are focusing more on entrepreneurship, which is near and dear to my heart. 20 years we're celebrating in business. So it's interesting about the pandemic that they have recorded that 1,850 businesses have started net per day in 2020. And of all new businesses, 60% were started by women of color.
There you go. The
So
mother of necessity.
and we have to do what we have to do. So
That's what we do.
absolutely, since we have all these new women in the fold of entrepreneurship, we have to find systems and ways to support them so they can
Yes.
grow and thrive.
Yes.
So I love the fact that the sorority has taken the mantle up to actually focus on that initiative, and I am here to support in any way that I can.
I'll remember you said that. Okay.
Yes, it's a passion of mine. Absolutely, absolutely. So I mean, this was just so much fun to talk to you, to talk about your background, to talk about,
I didn't plan to do all that, but okay.
I mean, I love you. Listen, I got a civil rights lesson. I learned about your fault. I loved it all. I mean, you gave us everything we needed and more. What are you planning to do after you pass the mantle to the next upcoming president and CEO of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated? What is next for Beverly Evans Smith?
That's a question I get asked a lot lately because my term ends in the fall of this year. I'll be finishing up and doing something else. I'm not done. I mean, I know that. I have to decide what I'm going to do next. I suppose one of the things will be to get more active in the business. I kind of let my husband has been the lead on that for quite a while through this whole Delta thing. So, and I retired from the college system in 2018, 2 years into my presidency. I said, these things do not mix, so I need to move on. So my husband said, he says, okay, so you're retiring the paying job
to start the volunteer job.
Do the volunteer
sorority.
Job.
Okay.
So I said, just, bear with me. We're going to get through this. Is going to be okay. But I am well past retirement age from work in the standard sense of the word. So I'll be doing something. I just haven't figured out exactly what that's going to be yet.
Well, hopefully it's going to be a celebration. Hopefully you have a fabulous trip planned since we will be coming out of this pandemic.
Well, this is our 50th anniversary, our 50th wedding anniversary this year. So
you have to do something.
We have to do something. We have to do something, go somewhere. So yes, I'll take a break, but after that, I'll have to, I'm starting to think now in terms of what comes next. I'll work on it.
Based on your background, you are the mother of reinvention. You are the mother of what's next? And I love that. That's the inspiration that I love, to show me that, really my life is just starting, right?
Oh gosh, yes. Yeah,
yes.
I've got, let me see, 6 weeks, I'll be 73. So
oh my gosh.
You can't, it's that, you know what? And age is just a number. It really is. I honestly believe the more you stay engaged and the more you involved in life, the more life you have. You can't think about, oh my God, I try not to give that some thought. So my granddaughter, when I turned 70, my granddaughter, who was, I think, smart little girl, 4 at the time, said, okay, so are you closer to 40 or 100? I said, well, she knows her math.
Yes, she knows her math. She's like, wait a minute.
But let me think, 30 years either. So I said, this is not the way this is supposed to go.
Yeah, this is not the conversation I want to have right now.
No. And first of all, it was, who told you that's where I was anyway? I'm sure her mother spilled those beans. But you have so much more to go and so many more things you're going to do. I'm excited just because of the things you did now. The good news is you're in a different place in time. There are still barriers. There's always going to be barriers. I wish we could get past them all. But the Black woman thing, you've got the woman thing, we got the Black thing that they claim that puts us at the bottom of the barrel. But I tell you what, if you look at the change makers and the change agents behind the scenes, and it's time you come up from behind that curtain as the Wizard of Oz, and actually for Black women, this is the time to come out and be full-blown you.
Yes.
To do you, to make the changes you can. Take
Yes.
the model that Kamala Harris has put out there and soar with it. These little kids, my daughter sent me a picture the day of the inauguration. when Kamala Harris was standing up there holding her hand, she sent me a picture from the back of my granddaughter, Stacy, standing there staring at the screen with her hand up saying the oath together at the same time. See, that's what our children have to see. I used to say it in adult ed all the time. You can't be what you can't see.
Absolutely.
We all have a responsibility to be things so our children can see that and make a better future for themselves.
We are living in incredible times right now. I'm so excited and so blessed to have met you and know you. And thank you so much for your time, Sarah. And hey, you've given us all we needed for today.
There you go.
So
Thank you so much for that. I
you.
appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can find all of our past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, and Google, or any of your other favorite podcast platforms. Be sure to subscribe to the show, rate, and leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Thank you for listening.